30 seconds is all it took for Derrick Lewis to knock out heavyweight's best prospect, as Derrick Lewis just slumps Tallison Teixeira in 35 seconds. This was a sick card. I thought this might have been one of the best cards this year, UFC Nashville. A shit ton of finishes, Derrick Lewis getting a KO to end it all off. Apart from the robbery in the comment event, I thought this is what we need for fight nights. Not this slop in the apex. When we ask for good fight nights, this is what we expect. I thought this was a sick card. And yeah, let's go for every fight. Starting off with Fatima Kline versus Melissa Martinez. Yeah, Fatima Kline dominates Melissa Martinez and gets a perfect head kick KO to end it all off. Head kick KOs Melissa Martinez and potential women MMA KO of the year. I mean, how often is it that we actually get a KO in women MMA? I mean, there's only been about, what, 5 to 10 of them this year. We had a couple of good KOs to kick off the year in women MMA, but most of the time, it's been stale. This could be one of the KO of the year contenders for Fatima Kline. She absolutely dominates for Melissa Martinez the entire fight, was leading in the significant strikes, outstriking her, perfectly sets up the head kick, clocks it on Melissa Martinez, drops her, and then goes for the ground and pound finish. And what makes this impressive is Fatima Kline coming into this fight was a submission threat. You know, if you look at her record, she comes from a BJJ background. I picked her to win by submission. She dominated her opponent with grappling in the last fight. She's known for being a submission threat. This was supposed to be a heavy grappler versus like a, you know, a dogfighty type striker. And she goes out there, pieces up Melissa Martinez, barely shoots any takedowns, and then just goes in there and head kick KOs her to get a women MMA KO. Kline is legit. I'm telling you this, man. Kline is legit. I think she's a future top 5 fighter. Trains with the likes of Erin Blanchfield as well. Great win for Fatima Kline, knocking out Melissa Martinez. And for Melissa Martinez, keep her in the UFC. I think she's only 1-2, which is still bad. But, you know, women MMA, we got to be a bit more generous. She's got a couple of finishes on her record, nearly finished Alice Ardeline. So, good performance from Fatima Kline. I think she's going to go far. I think she's future top 5 in this division. Great grappler. Apparently now she's a good striker too. And yeah, solid win for Fatima Kline. Then we had Mike Davis versus Mitch Ramirez, as Mike Davis gets the TKO in the second round. Yeah, this was Mitch Ramirez put up a pretty decent fight, but eventually Mike Davis clocks him, gets him against the cage, starts unloading in the second round, and knocks out Mitch Ramirez. But this was a banger. Both of these guys just firing back, and I feel bad for Mitch Ramirez because you look at every time he's had the opportunity in the UFC or the Contender Series, it was first against Carlos Prates, one of the most dangerous welterweights in the world. Then it was against Thiago Moises, and now Mike Davis. Again, two absolute killers unranked in the lightweight division. And to be fair, again, he hasn't performed that bad against Mike Davis, even though Davis was in control the entire fight. There were times where Mitch Ramirez was landing back and not necessarily wobbling, but, you know, clipping Mike Davis with big shots. So you got to give Mitch Ramirez his respect. I say we give him another opportunity in the UFC, give him some sort of can from the Contender Series and see how good he is, because you just keep feeding him killers. And again, there was a time when he clocked Mike Davis in the fight and I thought it was wobbled, but yeah, Davis dominated the fight just as expected. I know he only fights like once a year, does Mike Davis. I think he's fought twice this year. He slid one in January, but if he can stay active, this guy's got top 15 potential. I know Mike Davis, I know we just lost to Fares Ziam, but I still think he's one of the better unranked lightweights we've got. You know, leading up to that fight with Fares Ziam, he was on a 4-fight winning streak. He's just KO'd Mitch Ramirez against the cage in the second round. He didn't put up that bad of a fight against Fares Ziam too, so I think for Mike Davis, staying active needs to be his biggest goal. Beating one of these higher level guys unranked at 155, and then looking for the top 15 because he's talented. And again, like I said, this fight was a banger. Both guys throwing back and forth, both guys exchanging. Mike Davis gets the KO. Good win for Mike Davis, but again, I don't think it's one of those fights where you can really shame Mitch Ramirez too much for losing. He put up a decent fight, made it to the second round, wasn't supposed to be in there with Mike Davis, so good win for Mike Davis. I just hope that he stays a bit more active, because I'm not saying he can go on a run and become something big, but, you know, top 15 potential. I mean, you've got guys like fucking Moicano in the division. Get Mike Davis in. Anyway, then we had Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Valter Walker. Valter Walker, this guy's the next big thing in the heavyweight division, apparently. Gets a heel hook on Kennedy in the first round and is now on a 3-fight winning streak, all of them being by first round heel hook. Heavyweight, you have a Ryan Hall. This is the most heavyweight thing to happen. For there to be a guy to lose his UFC debut to Lucas Brzeski, to be Johnny Walker's brother, and then to go on a 3-fight tear all by first round heel hooks, 3 in a row. Good win for Valter Walker. You know, he goes in there against Kennedy Nzechukwu, who is known for being a pretty dangerous boxing mover for light heavyweight, clocks him with a big shot, gets him up against the cage, starts unloading, and just says, fuck it, let me go for 3. Gets the third heel hook in a row. And you know what? He could actually go quite far in this division. He beats Sergey Spivak. He'd submit Sergey Spivak. He probably submits Marcin Tybura. That's how, this is the state of the division. But you know what? We've had quite a few heavyweights competing on this card, which we'll get onto. But Valter Walker, 3 heel hooks in a row. And he might actually be a good heavyweight prospect for the division. division, despite obviously losing to Lucas Brzeski, which isn't a good look. So, great win for Valter Walker. In terms of Kennedy, I never really saw Kennedy going too far. You know, moving up from the light heavyweight division is obviously more athletic than the heavyweights that he was facing, but he was facing, you know, he was facing Lucas Brzeski and Chris Barnett, you know what I mean? He's not exactly facing the most athletic of guys, so I think Kennedy can still stay around the division, be like borderline top 15, but Valter Walker, get this guy in the top 15. He's better than most guys, like from number 9 to number 15 in the rankings. 3 heel hooks in the row. Heavyweight, you have a new Ryan Hall. Bit of a prospect at heavyweight now, so good win for Valter Walker. 3rd heel hook in a row against Kennedy Nzechukwu. Then we had Lauren Murphy versus Eduarda Moura. Snooze fest of the night, just as I predicted. Yeah, Eduarda Moura wins the fight and Lauren Murphy retires. Not really much to say about this fight, to be fair. Eduarda Moura did exactly as I expected. Smothered Lauren Murphy with the grappling. Was winning most of the striking exchanges. I mean, you've got a 41-year-old Lauren Murphy who's been inactive for 2 years. It's not exactly easy to sell that fight. But it was a pretty decent fight, you know, when standing, considering that they're both grapplers with mid-striking. The stand-up exchanges weren't that bad. And it's women MMA. I've always said that I think low-level women MMA, or just low-level MMA in general, is a lot more entertaining because there's a lot less of that boring, patient technique. It's kind of just more street fight-esque. And we kind of saw that on the feet with Lauren Murphy, who looks like a street fighter. But yeah, Eduarda Moura gets the win, as expected. Bit of a prospect in this division now. Lauren Murphy retires, somehow kind of starts making it about herself. I want to thank myself. Either way, good win for Eduarda Moura. Not much to talk about when it comes to this fight. Then we had Jake Matthews versus Chidi Njokuani. Jake Matthews gets a submission in the first round, and he's actually on a bit of a run right now in the welterweight division. Gets the submission in about 30 seconds against Chidi Njokuani. Gets the win. 3-fight winning streak, I think it is now for Jake Matthews as well. And 1 minute submission. Easy work for Jake Matthews. And that's what's impressive as well, because he's doing it to Chidi. You know, it's not like he's going out there and going to a decision with Francisco Prado like his last fight. To do that to Chidi Njokuani, who's on, what, a 3-fight winning streak, just knocked out Zaleski de Santos. That's impressive for Jake Matthews. Good grappler and a much needed finish. You know, he had a shit ton of decisions in his record. I highly doubted this one was going to go to get a finish if it was in favor of Jake Matthews, but he goes out there, gets the finish in about 30 seconds, clinches with Chidi, takes the back, and eventually locks in the rear naked choke. And yeah, submits Chidi Njokuani. Great win for Jake Matthews. I think maybe 1 or 2 more wins, and it's top 15 potential for this guy. And he's a bit of a weird fighter as Jake Matthews, because I don't know, he's like, a lot of these Australian fighters, it's kind of like if they can be bothered showing up, because he is a well-rounded guy. He can strike, he can grapple, more sort of a grappler, but he can do everything, can Jake Matthews. It's just easy focused. And on performances like this, that's where he looks impressive. Like I said, 3-fight winning streak now. I just think he needs to pull his socks up, beat 1 more or 2 more guys, unranked at 170, and then maybe get someone in the top 15. But nevertheless, good win for Jake Matthews. Then we had Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin. Again, another really good fight where Chris Curtis wins. Very tight decision where he wins a split decision, but he was winning the fight in my opinion. But yeah, solid fight. Both guys kind of exchanging. Max Griffin's a weird one as well, though, because Max Griffin, he was landing. Like, the way this fight was looking, you'd think that Chris Curtis was dominating him. He was walking forward, landing shots on Max Griffin. You'd think he was dominating the fight. But I just feel like with Max Griffin, he lands shots, but every mannerism he does makes him look exhausted and wobbled. He's always on the back foot. He barely pushes a pace. He barely goes out of his way to look like he actually wants to win the fight. And he's kind of, I don't know, it's a weird mannerisms of Max Griffin. He's always on the back foot. But either way, it was a good fight. Chris Curtis walking forward with that, I guess I say technical, but it's not really that technical, but a boxing heavy approach against Max Griffin. Max Griffin would kind of try and pick him apart from the outside, but it was a decent back and forth fight. Couple of fouls in this fight, which tends to be a bit of a theme in Chris Curtis fights. He always gets fouled, and now he's got Twitter ammo for the next couple of months. I was kind of hoping that Chris Curtis was going to lose the fight, so we had something to post on Twitter for the next 3 months. If you know about Chris Curtis, the guy is one of the saltiest fighters in the UFC. You could get one accidental like nut shot on Chris Curtis, and he'll shut up about it for the next 3 months on Twitter. So I can only imagine the run this guy's going to go on Twitter. But he gets to win at 170 as well against Max Griffin, which I guess is a decent win. It was a fair decision, though. Close fight. Max Griffin did better than than what looked visually, but I thought it was a fair decision to Chris Curtis. I don't really see him going too far at 170 either, though. That's the thing with Chris Curtis. I don't think it's a divisional thing. I think it's just a skill thing. If you're not making it to the top 15 at middleweight, I don't see how you're going to make it to the top 15 at 170, which is generally speaking a much tougher division, but we'll have to see. Gets to win over Max Griffin, was winning the fight, was on the front foot, looked pretty good. It was a decent fight. And yeah, good win for Chris Curtis. Max Griffin now on a 2-fight losing streak, decision machine. Is this guy? I think Max Griffin might be tying up to like Brad Tavares for the fighter in the UFC with the most decisions. How many decisions has this guy gone to in his career? Either way, good win for Chris Curtis. Then we had Junior Tafa versus Tuco tackles. The movable object versus the stoppable forces. Tackles gets the submission in the second round. Yeah, kind of dominates Junior Tafa with the grappling the entire fight until he gets the submission. But to be fair to I will say this about Junior Tafa. He was looking good. He moved down to the light heavyweight division. He looked in better shape. He was on this new diet, in better shape. But the Tafa bros just ain't UFC worthy. It's no good being in good shape when MMA is the one thing that you lack. He's in the UFC and he can't MMA. He could Junior Tafa. He's just one of these clubbing Samoan fighters who just clubs a massive overhand right. But he looked good in this fight. He was looking pretty quick on the feet. Landed a couple of big shots on Tuco tackles. Had him wobbled a few times. But Tuco Chimaev comes in with his first big win and just, dominates Junior Tafa with the grappling. Takes him down. Doesn't really do much with the position. Tries going for ground and pound every now and then, but kind of just maintains position until the submission comes along and submits Junior Tafa, and it was a great win for the stoppable force in Tuco tacos. What do you do with the Tafa brothers now? Like, how many fights have they both collectively won and lost in the UFC? I think they've got to have a record of like 5-11 in the UFC or some shit like that. Like, they've lost more fights than they've won in the UFC. They're both coming off finished losses. Like, what do you actually do with the Tafa brothers now? Moving down a weight class, wasn't it? I say you send them back to the regional scene. Like I said, I guess fun. They're not even fun personalities, though. They don't really do anything fun. They're just shit. But good win for Tuco Tackles. Gets the win against quite possibly the easiest fighter he could have taken on in the division and moving down Tafa brothers. So good for him. Don't see him going too far, but it is what it is. Stoppable force, movable object. The stoppable force wins in Tuco Tackles. Then we had Vitor Petrino versus Austen Lane, another heavyweight fight on this card. First of all, before I get into the fight, Vitor Petrino looks chunky. I was looking at his images moving up to the heavyweight division. This guy is big. Like, he took the bulk too far, but it obviously doesn't pay off in the performance because he goes out there against Austen Lane and submits him in the first round. Takes down Austen Lane, and within a couple of minutes, he's found the submission over Austen Lane and he's back in the winning column. Yeah, Petrino proving that the light heavyweight to heavyweight jumping theory is true. If you're a bit of a journeyman in the light heavyweight division, your career's not going on track, you're not really making it too far, just move up to heavyweight. Yeah, it's going to be 10 times easier. How bad is Rebellis to spin as well to lose to Austen Lane? But anyway, yeah, Austen Lane, again, one of these heavyweights that might be one of the worst fighters on the roster. I don't know his UFC record. I think it might be like 4-1 or 5-1, and one of those losses, sorry, no, 1-5, and one of those losses is to a Tafa brother as well. So yeah, the UFC, knowing them, they're gonna like keep Austen Lane for whatever reason, but then they'll cut Riz Vankudiev for losing to Curtis Blaze. That's some shit that the UFC would do. But anyway, good win for Vitor Petrino. Looked pretty dominant in there. Solid heavyweight prospect. Not that he's shown any life-changing skill in there. It's just, we're talking about the heavyweight division. Any fighter that can put together a few wins is classed as a prospect. And you know what? Like I said, I don't mind these light heavyweights moving up to the heavyweight division. We need some more names in that division. If Vitor Petrino is going to be the guy to move up a division and beat Austen Lane, fair play to him. Don't see Vitor going particularly far either. But again, if he can improve his striking, maybe a bit more explosive on the feet, I can see him going pretty far. So good win for Vitor Petrino. Dominates Austen Lane, and that's got to be it for Austen Lane now. You know what I mean? Failed NFL career. Failed UFC career. What's that saying? The master of a lot of different things. A wizard of, I don't know, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, next fight. Nate Landwehr versus Morgan Charriere, just as advertised. Banger of a fight, and Morgan Charriere slumps Nate Landwehr in the third round. Yeah, this was a sick fight. Both guys swinging back and forth. Then Charriere just decided in the third round, fuck it, I'm better than this guy. Let me sleep Nate Landwehr real quick, and that's exactly what he did. Yeah, just slumps Nate Landwehr in the third round. Charriere was losing this fight, I would say. Nate Landwehr was landing the bigger shots. He was on the front foot. And yeah, he seemed to be landing the bigger shots over Morgan Charriere, but he realised mid-fight that he was better because he is better. Nate Landwehr is not particularly a great fighter. He's got a good personality. He seems to be pretty dangerous and I guess strong for the division, but he's not exactly a great fighter. Morgan Charriere is a pretty solid kickboxer. He was always the better guy in this fight. He just kind of realised that after the second round. They say, you need to get hit in the face to wake up, and that was the case for Morgan Charriere. And they just went for it in that third round. Put the pressure on Nate Landwehr, started swinging for the fences, clipped him, and then with another big shot, knocks him out cold. But I must say, Nate Landwehr, I just love this guy's style. It is the definition of kill or be killed. Such a vulnerable guy. Not the best technically, not the best defensively, quite a chinny guy as well for the division, but he's also so dangerous. He's got the ability to put anybody out on a good day. So I kind of feel bad for Nate Landwehr because I love his style, but it was a brutal KO. Good win for Morgan Charriere. We've got a Paris card coming up in September in a couple of months time. I know Morgan Charriere was in a bit of a 3-round war in that, and I don't know if he's going to be able to turn around, but what, the Paris card's in September or in early July, recover throughout July, get back into training camp mid-August, and I say get him on the Paris card. He's one of France's best fighters right now. Get him on the card, and for Nate Landwehr, he'll be back. He'll probably KO some Can, and then we can see him go on a bit of a rise again. But yeah, great win for Morgan Charriere, slumping Nate Landwehr. And pretty solid finish as well. Probably going to get a 50k bonus as well for that. Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia, where Steve Garcia just beats Calvin Kattar as expected on the front foot and picks apart Calvin Kattar. Before I talk about Steve Garcia, bro, I'm pissed at Calvin Kattar. Like, how do you never evolve? How do you take so many losses? How do you have so many fights in the UFC and you just never evolve? He looks the exact same in every single one of his fights, and that's why he keeps losing. He must be the easiest fighter on earth to prepare for. You don't have to worry about him switching things up. You don't have to worry about a stance switch or a game plan. It's like an NPC on a UFC 5 video game that just does the same shit. He does the same thing. Walk forward box. Yeah, kind of, I say pressure boxing. Ain't even pressure boxing these days, but he just never changes his style, and Steve Garcia took capitalization of that and just dominates, dominates Calvin Kattar with this front foot boxing, walks forward, lands the combinations. I think in the third round he dropped him as well, nearly got the finish, and Steve Garcia was lighting Calvin Kattar up on the feet. Serious featherweight contender for sure is Steve Garcia now. You know, he's on a 6-fight winning streak, 5 of them by KO. Big winning streak, and like I just said, going to be in the top 15. I rate this guy more than I rate Yusuf Zalal as well, to be fair. So give Steve Garcia somebody in the top 10. He called out Josh Emmett. I think that's the perfect fight. Steve Garcia versus Josh Emmett. Maybe not a main event, but like an Apex core main event or a Fight Night main card somewhere. I think that'd be sick. But yeah, he seems like a great dude as well. I'm looking at Steve Garcia, and he's always pulling this mean face. You'd think he's like a third Diaz brother, but seemed like a pretty nice guy on the Octagon interview. Was thanking Calvin Kattar, was asking for someone, but the dude is mean. Good prospect in this division and fun performance. But for Calvin Kattar, man, like, at what point do you think maybe just wrap up the gloves? How do you never improve? Like, you're on a 5-fight losing streak now. You're losing and you look the same in exactly every single one of your fights. Maybe implement a kick over in there. Maybe, you know, apply a bit more pressure. Maybe implement the grappling. You look the same in every fight. You know what I mean? And Steve Garcia took capitalization of that. So I'm a bit pissed for Calvin Kattar. You know, he's one of these fighters that just fails to improve. But Steve Garcia looked pretty good against the win. And then we had Stephen Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. Now, the fight itself wasn't that bad, at least on Stephen Thompson's end. He looked really good in this fight. He was picking apart Gabriel Bonfim, but Bonfim had somehow paid a cash prize to the judges and got a robbery win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. This was a brutal robbery. In what universe did Gabriel Bonfim win that? How can that be classed as a win? How can you get lit up on the feet, saved by the bell in the second round, be down on significant strikes, wobbled multiple times, and because you smothered somebody against the cage and decided to stall for a minute, you've won a fight? In what sense is that winning a fight? It's not. You can't even use the whole case of, oh, he had more control time. Fuck control time. Damage over control time. I guess there was more damage on Stephen's calf, but come on, really counting that as damage. Stephen won the fight. Pathetic way to end off a Wonderboy Masterclass as well. He looked great in that fight. He was about to break the losing streak, shutting up a prospect at 42 years old, and the judges just had to find a way to fuck it all up as well. And for Gabriel Bonfim, mate, that's a pathetic performance as well. At least in the, you know, when there's a minute left. I'm not saying, you know, throw the fight or anything, but at least, come on, it's Stephen Thompson showing something. If you can't take him down, get back on the feet. Holding somebody against the cage is the finest form of just pathetic bullshitter in the UFC. It's pathetic, mate. Holding him against the cage. It's a dumb sport, dumb judges. Stephen should have won the fight. Now, I was going to say that Stephen should retire if he loses this, but to be fair, he didn't even look half bad in there. He was lighting up Gabriel Bonfim, nearly finished him. He got saved by the belted Bonfim in that second round, so I do feel bad for Stephen Thompson. I'm not saying he needs to retire just yet. If you give him like a D-Rod when he loses to Kevin Holland or someone else at 170, he'll pick up a win. But yeah, the judges are ruining this sport. Stephen won the fight. There's no way that Gabriel Bonfim won that fight. Maybe you would punish him and force him to face, like, you know, force him to face down the rankings like we do with some other fighters. But it is what it is. Stephen Thompson gets to win. And then Derrick Lewis. You can always count on Derrick Lewis to show up once a year and then knock out some heavyweight that nobody's ever heard of before, as he gets the KO in the first round against Tallison Teixeira, knocks him out in 35 seconds. Fuck it, he ain't got time to waste. Knocks him out, takes his pants off, pisses on his corner as well. Derrick Lewis has got to be one of your favorite heavyweights out there. 40 seconds, not even 40, it was like 35 seconds when he landed the big shot and got the finish against Tallison Teixeira. And he's just slumped heavyweight's best prospect in 40 seconds. I mean, on one hand, I'm a bit pissed off because the heavyweight division needed Tallison Teixeira, because without him, who have you really got? Valter Walker. But Derrick Lewis shows up for his annual fight, takes his paycheck, gets the octagon interview, gets the celebration, but most importantly, he just slumps Tallison Teixeira in 30 seconds. He's gotten, man. Bit of an early stoppage, I would say. You know, Tallison Teixeira seemed to be good in there, but to be fair, he was grabbing the cage to help himself back up, and he wasn't really defending himself intelligently, so I couldn't understand why the referee was stopping the fight. And for Derrick Lewis, man, I'm not even saying this like unironically, I think Derrick Lewis could go on a bit of a title run. If you put him against like a Marcin Tybura next, I know he's KO'd Tybura before. You put him against like a Marcin Tybura, and he slumps Tybura, or even like a Curtis Blades again, or someone in the top 5, and he could slump one of those guys. Mate, he's going to be taking on Aspinall, because who else is there? And I will say this, Derrick Lewis has a decent chance against Tom Aspinall. It's not rage bit or anything, but think about it. You ain't going to outclass Tom Aspinall. No heavyweight in the UFC right now is outclassing Aspinall. If you're going to beat him, it's going to be by landing a massive clubbing shot, and that's exactly what Derrick Lewis can do. So anyway, great win by Derrick Lewis. 35 seconds, no time to waste. It would be good to see him again later on this year rather than just once a year. Maybe stick him on like the UFC 320 pay-per-view, or maybe if Tom Aspinall's going to be on a pay-per-view later on this year, you get Derrick Lewis against the top contender to kind of be like the next title fight. But either way, Derrick Lewis slumps Tallison Teixeira in 40 seconds and just beats heavyweight's best prospect. Classic Derrick Lewis fight. But yeah, UFC Nashville, I thought this was a sick card. You know, this is what you want from a fight night, so I'm happy with the card. Let me know your thoughts on this card, and yeah, your favorite moment. Thank you for watching.